Gerald Lucas here with another installment of Ask Gerald, where you get your real estate questions answered. Today's question comes from Curtis. Curtis writes from Scotch Plains, New Jersey. And Curtis writes, our friend fixes and flips houses, and he offered us the opportunity to invest in his next project. What's the best way to get compensated? Well, Curtis, as a private money investor in a fix and flip transaction, you can choose to be compensated by interest that's paid on the money that you lend for the time that it's outstanding being used in the transaction, or you can be compensated by the equity that you have in the property, which normally would result in you getting a percentage of the profit that's derived from the transaction, if in fact there is a profit. Or you could be compensated by a combination of both interest and equity. To formalize your stake in the transaction, you can use what's called an equity participation loan agreement that spells out exactly what your equity stake is and what your compensation would be at the end of the transaction as a percentage, for example, of the profit that's derived from the fix and flip transaction. It's important to formalize all these things in a written agreement, and which I also, in addition to your compensation, should also address certain things that could happen during the transaction, like if you have a cost overrun, or you have to replace a contractor, or if you have trouble finding a buyer after the transaction. It's a good idea to try to think of all the different contingencies that can happen throughout the life of the transaction and address them in the written agreement before the transaction begins, so that everyone is on the same page and you don't have any conflicts later on. So thanks for your question, Curtis. For more real estate tips and information, visit my blog at geraldlucas.com. I'm Gerald Lucas, and I'll see you again soon.